Good day, everyone. My name is Rich Kamampangan, together with my members, Mr. Valdueza and Mr. Labis. Today, we will going to discuss and report the three topics that we have: the glycogen, gluconeogenesis, and the pentose phosphate pathway. So I will be discussing the gluconeogenesis. Mr. Valdueza will going to discuss the glycogen, and lastly, Mr. Labis will discuss the pentose phosphate pathway. So before we proceed for our different topics into this discussion, let's have our learning objective first and the overview of today's discussion. So first in our learning objective is understand the role of glycogen and energy storage and its regulation in the body. Second, explain the process of gluconeogenesis and its significance in maintaining the blood glucose level during fasting. Third is explore the pentose phosphate pathway and its importance in generating the NADPH and ribose 5 phosphate for biosynthetic processes. Fourth is compare and contrast the regulations of glycogen metabolism, gluconeogenesis, and the pentose phosphate pathway. And lastly is to analyze the clinical condition related to abnormalities in these pathways and their impacts on overall health. So for our overview in today's discussion, glycogen, gluconeogenesis, and pentose phosphate pathway are vital metabolic pathways for maintaining energy balance and cellular process. So glycogen, it stores sugar in the liver and muscles or glucose, while gluconeogenesis synthesizes the sugar or glucose from non-carbohydrate precursors, mainly in the liver. So the pentose phosphate pathway, it generates the NADPH and ribose 5 phosphate, which are essential for antioxidant defense and reductive biosynthetic reactions. So basically, understanding these three topics or three discussions or these pathways is crucial for comprehending how the body maintains glucose homeostasis, produces energy, and synthesizes essential biomolecules. Dysregulations of this pathway can lead to metabolic disorders and impact overall health.
Good day, everybody. Good day, ma'am. I am Darmanuel Valdivesa, and my part is glycogen metabolism. So, glycogen metabolism. The glucose 6 phosphate derived from glycogen. Breakdown has three phases. First is it is the initial substrate for glycolysis. So, glycolysis, glucose 6 phosphate serves as an initial substrate for glycolysis. So it is the central metabolic pathway for glucose catabolism. This pathway breaks down glucose to produce ATP, or known as adenosine triphosphate, the primary energy currency of cells. Second is it can be processed by the pentose phosphate pathway to yield NADPH and ribose phosphate So pentose phosphate pathway. So the glucose 6 phosphate can also enter the pentose phosphate pathway. So kanina nga pathway is crucial na siya for producing NADPH. So it is a reducing agent for essential for various anabolic processes katong building up molecules and ribose 5 phosphate. Kuan siya, it is a precursor for nucleotide for building DNA, or known as deoxyribonucleic acid, and RNA, which is the ribonucleic acid. So it can be converted into a free glucose for release into bloodstream. So mainly in the liver. So it is lesser extent in the intestine and kidney. So free glucose release. So finally, ang glucose 6 phosphate can converted into a free glucose and release na siya into the bloodstream. So kani siya nga process kay primarily occurs in the liver. So ga-play ni siya vital role in maintaining blood glucose or homeostasis, katong ga-keep og blood keeping blood sugar levels stable. So kani this releases also happens to a lesser extent in the intestine and kidney. Breakdown of glycogen. So Glycogen is primarily found in liver and muscle. So, ang location of glycogen is mainly stored in the liver and muscle. Next is the release of glycogen in liver is triggered by a low level of glucose in the blood, so in the liver. Glycogen breakdown is initiated by a low blood glucose levels. So this is a crucial for maintaining blood sugar homeostasis. Next is in glycogen degradation. This has 3 steps. So ang process day of breaking down glucose kay involve siya ning 3 key steps. So ang first is glucose 1-phosphate releases glycogen. Glycogen phosphorylase. So ga-release siya og glucose 1-phosphate units from the glycogen. So this is an initial step in mobilizing stored glucose. Next is substrate remodeling enzymes. Rearrange the glycogen structure to ensure further degradation can occur. So, kani siya nga step kay ga-prepare siya sa remaining glycogen for efficient breakdown. Next is ang conversion to glucose 6-phosphate to glucose 1-phosphate converted into glucose 6-phosphate. So, kanina is a crucial step because ang glucose 6-phosphate can be utilized in various metabolic pathways. Glycogen breakdown glucose 1-phosphate. So, this is the initial step of glycogen breakdown, focusing on the formation of glucose 1-phosphate. So, first is in cleavage by phosphate. So, ang glycogen, the storage form of glucose, is cleaved or kaning broken, but not by water or kanang hydrolysis, but by an inorganic phosphate or kanang pi. So this is a phosphorylytic reaction, a key distinction. Next is kaning phosphorylysis, not hydrolysis. Kay the reaction is specifically called a phosphorylysis, not hydrolysis. So this is important because ang hydrolysis would yield free glucose, requiring an extra step and energy uh, energy expenditure to phosphorylate it later. Phosphorylysis directly produces a glucose 1-phosphate. So next is no ATP is required. So this initial cleavage step is energetically favorable, and it doesn't require ATP. So ATP, the energy of phosphate bond, is conserved in the glucose 1-phosphate molecule. Next is ang enzyme glycogen phosphorylase. So the enzyme that catalyzes this reaction is glycogen phosphorylase. This enzyme is crucial for regulating glycogen breakdown. So ang sa kanilang sa ubos is kaning, so the diagram shows the reaction schematically. Ang glucose unit is removed from the glycogen chain and phosphate group is added to create glucose 1-phosphate. So this is the starting point for further metabolism of the glucose stored in the glycogen. Glycogen phosphorylase. Here it focuses on the limitation of glycogen phosphorylase in glycogen breakdown. So glycogen phosphorylase. So this enzyme will only release on a glucose unit that is at least 5 units from a branch point. So ang distance niya from branch point, glycogen phosphorylase can only cleave or kanang break and 1,4 glycosidic bonds. Crucially, it can only do this in glucose units that are at least 5 glucose units away from a branch points. So A16 to glycosidic linkage. So it cannot cleave or it cannot break the glycosidic bonds near the branch point. So next is kaning leaves for glucose attached to the branch. So four glucose residues remain. So as a result of this limitation, after glycogen phosphorylase acts, four glucose units remain attached to the branch point. So these are inaccessible to glycogen phosphorylase. So kani sa ubos kaning this diagram illustrates this. So kaning makita nimo ang glycogen phosphorylase acting on a chain pero nag-stop siya sa 4 glucose units away from the branch point. So leaving those 4 units attached. So this means the branching enzyme is required to remove those last 4 glucose units near the branch point. So ang debranching enzyme is essential siya para makomplete ang glycogen degradation. So for this slide is debranching glycogen remodeling. So this slide explains the role of debranching enzymes in completing glycogen breakdown. So glycogen's branch structure requires a specialized enzymes to fully degrade it. So complete breakdown requires debranching enzymes to degrade the 1,6 linkage. So the need for debranching enzymes to to complete glycogen breakdown, it requires debranching enzymes to handle the A16 linkage or katong mga branch points so that glycogen phosphorylase cannot directly cleaved or katong mag-break. Next is kaning glycogen debranching enzyme or transferase shift a block of 3. So transferase action. The glycogen debranching enzyme has transferase activity. It shifts a block of 3 glucose residues from one outer branch to another, extending a nearby chain. So, this creates a longer continuous chain accessible to glycogen phosphorylase. So, residue from outer branch to the other residue remaining at the branch point is hydrolyzed by further action of the branching enzyme to yield free glucose. So, hydrolysis at the branch point. After the transfer, a single glucose residue remains at the original branch point. The debranching enzyme's hydrolase activity removes the final glucose unit is a free glucose. So, not a glucose 1 phosphate. So, hydrolysis is used here because uh, there is no suitable chain to transfer to. So, the new elongated branch is subject to degradation by glycogen phosphorylase. So, continued phosphorylase. So, the newly linked chain is now accessible to glycogen phosphorylase, which can continue its phosphorylatic action to break down the remaining glycogen into glucose 1 phosphate. So, in essence, the debranching enzyme works in two stages, which is katong transferase and hydrolase para ma-remove itong mga branch points, enabling to complete breakdown of glycogen into a glucose 1 phosphate and free glucose. So, muna siya ang diagram kay shows this a process visually. So, glycogen breakdown. So, in the second reaction, the glucose 1 phosphate is isomerized to glucose 6 phosphate. So, sa second reaction of glycogen breakdown is katong glucose 1 phosphate is isomerized to glucose 6 phosphate. So, kani siya nga step is crucial because glucose 6 phosphate is the form of glucose that readily enters glycolysis. So, this reaction is catalyzed by phosphoglucomutase. So, also nga this step is energetically favorable, meaning nga it doesn't really require ATP, and it even saves ATP in the overall process. So, glucose 6 phosphate formation in glycolysis. So, glucose 6 phosphate is also formed in the first step of glycolysis. So, this step is catalyzed by either hexokinase or glucokinase. So, depending on the tissue. And also, this step requires ATP unlike sa isomerization step. Next is katong further metabolism. So, the glucose 6 phosphate produced in either step then enters the glycolytic pathway. So, in the muscle tissue is the glucose 6 phosphate proceeds directly through glycolysis to produce energy. So, sa liver side, ang glucose 6 phosphate is hydrolyzed to glucose, which kani siya ma-release siya into the bloodstream to maintain blood glucose levels. Glycogen synthesis. So, glycogen biosynthesis and breakdown must occur by separate pathways. So, glycogen biosynthesis are and breakdown are not simply the reverse of each other. So, they involve different enzymes and distinct metabolic pathways. So, this allows for precise regulation of glycogen levels. So, the formation of glycogen from glucose is not the exact reversal of the breakdown of glycogen to glucose. So, it's not a simple reversal. So, the formation of glycogen from glucose is not really the exact opposite of the glycogen's breakdown into glucose. So, ang reaction and enzymes involved are different, enabling independent control of the two processes. So, the enzymes catalyzing the three steps involved in the glycogen synthesis pathways are here. So, mo ni sila ang three key enzymes involved in the glycogen synthesis. So, let's start with the first UDP glucose pyrophosphorylase. So, kani siya nga enzyme is responsible for the initial activation of glucose, converting it into UDP glucose, a crucial precursor for glycogen synthesis. Next is the glycogen synthase. So, this is the main enzyme responsible for elongating the glycogen chain by adding glucose units from UDP glucose. Third is the glycogen branching enzyme. So, this enzyme introduces branches into the glycogen molecule. So, ga-create ni siya a highly branched structure that is essential for efficient storage and rapid mobilization of glucose. Formation of glycogen from glucose. So, the synthesis glycogen requires energy provided by the hydrolysis of UTP or uridine triphosphate, UDPG formation. So, glucose 1 phosphate reacts to the UTP from to form UDPG. So, katong UDP or known as UDP glucose. So, kani siyang reaction is catalyzed by UDPG, pyrophosphorylase, pyrophosphate. So, PPI is also a byproduct. So, this is an important step because UDPG is the activated form of glucose used in glycogen synthesis. And next is glycogen elongation. So, UDPG is then added to the growing chain of glycogen. So, this step is catalyzed by glycogen UDPG pyrophosphorylase. The UDP molecule is released. So, ang summary reaction kay sa image is also ga-provide siya summary of the synthesis and degradation reactions. So, synthesis glycogen plus UDP glucose to glycogen N plus 1 plus UDP. Degradation glycogen N plus 1 plus PI to glycogen plus G1 to P, so or glucose 1 phosphate. So in essence, glycogen synthesis is an anabolic process. So requires energy, and they involves of conversion to glucose 1 phosphate to UDP glucose, which is then used to build glycogen chains. The breakdown of glycogen or degradation is the reverse process, releasing glucose 1 phosphate. How is glycogen formed from glucose? So, coupling of UDPG formation with hydrolysis of pyrophosphate drives formation of UDPG to completion. So, the key is the coupling of two reactions. First is katong UDPG formation. Glucose 1 phosphate reacts with UTP or known as uridine triphosphate to form UDPG and PPI or pyrophosphate. So kani siya nga reaction on its own is not very favorable energetically. Next is pyrophosphate hydrolysis. So the immediate hydrolysis of PPI into two inorganic phosphate molecules or 2PI is a highly exergonic or energy releasing reaction. Next is ang energetic energetic favorability. So by coupling these two reactions, the overall process becomes energetically favorable. So the large negative free energy change or kaning gives free energy of pyrophosphate hydrolysis reaction effectively pulls or katong gibaran niyang tong less favorable UDP formation reaction forward to completion. So sa table or in the image shows the individual and overall gives free energy values demonstrating this coupling reaction. So in simpler terms, so ang energy is released from breaking down PPI provides the energy needed to create the UDPG. It is a necessary intermediate for glycogen synthesis. So kaning coupling mechanism is a common strategy in metabolism to drive otherwise unfavorable reaction. Now, for the UDPG glucose pyrophosphatase. So, phosphoryl oxygen of G1P attacks the alpha phosphorus atom of UTP to from UDPG and release PPI. So, first is kanang phosphoryl transfer. So, ang reaction kay ga-start siya with glucose 1 phosphate G1P and UTP or katong uridine triphosphate. So the phosphoryl oxygen atom of G1P ga-attack siya tong alpha phosphorus atom of UTP. Next is UDPG formation. So ang katong attack ga-result siya in the formation of a new bond between glucose and UDP. So creating a UDP glucose. Next is pyrophosphate release. So simultaneously pyrophosphate or PPI is released as a byproduct. Next is pyrophosphate hydrolysis. So crucially, the PPI is rapidly hydrolyzed by inorganic pyrophosphatase. So into two inorganic phosphate molecules or 2PI. So this hydrolysis is a highly exergonic reaction or kaning ga-release og energy. So kaning nga energy kay energy release drives the overall reaction forward, making the formation of UDP glucose more favorable. So in short, ang UDPG glucose pyrophosphorylase catalyzes a two-part reaction, the formation of UDP glucose katong a relatively unfavorable reaction coupled with hydrolysis of PPI, which is a highly favorable reaction, which makes the entire process energetically feasible. So the enzyme is vital for providing the activated glucose needed for glycogen synthesis. Reaction catalyzed by glycogen synthase. So the key regulatory enzyme in glycogen synthesis. So the substrate of UDP glucose, which provides the activated glucose unit. So the glycosyl unit of UDPG is transferred to the C4OH group on one of glycogen's non-reducing ends to form an alpha 104 glycosidic bond. Next is the glycosyl unit or glucose from UDP glucose is transferred to the C4-OH group at the non-reducing end of a glycogen chain. Next, glycosidic bond formation. This transfers to create an alpha 1-4 glycosidic bond extending the glycogen chain. So, the UDP molecule is released in this process. So, the glycosyl synthase is thought to involve a glycosyl oxonium ion intermediate. So, proposed intermediate. It's believed nga ang glycogen synthase kay gayo siya og katong glycosyl oxonium ion. So, intermediate during this reaction. So, this intermediate helps facilitate the transfer of the glucose unit. So, in summary, the glucose synthase add glucose unit from UDP glucose to the non-reducing ends of glycogen chains, creating a alpha-1 for linkage and extending to the glycogen molecule. So, kanilang enzyme is the central regulating glycogen synthase. Glycogen synthase. So, glycogen synthase can only extend to an already existing alpha 104 or glycosidic bond. So, ang glycogen synthase cannot simply link together two glucose residues. So, glycogen synthase limitation. Ang chain extension is only ang glycogen synthase can only add glucose units to an already existing alpha 1-4 glycosidic bond, and it cannot create the initial bond between two glucose molecules. It cannot initiate synthesis. So, therefore, the glycogen synthase cannot initiate glycogen synthesis on its own. Ganid siya og katong pre-existing chain to work on. So, the first step in glycogen synthesis is the self-catalyzed attachment of a glucose residue to a tier 194OH group, a protein named glycogenin. It is a primer. So, the role of glycogenin. So, the initial step of glycogen synthesis involves a protein called glycogenin. So, primer protection. So, ang glycogenin kay gaak siya as a primer. So, it's a protein na catalyzes siya the attachment of the very first glucose residue. So, glycogen or kang self-glucosylation. So, glycogenin initiates the process by attaching a glucose residue to a tyrosine or katong tier 194 residue on its own structure. So, chain elongation. Ang glycogenin then acts as a catalyst, adding a more glucose units up to about 8 na siya to the initial glucose. So, it is essentially a building short glycogen chain. So, once the short chain is formed, the glycogen synthase takes over, continuing the chain extension to create a larger glycogen molecule. Glycogen branching. So, branches are created by a transfer of terminal chain segments consisting of 7 glucosyl residues to C6OH group of glucose residues. So, on the same or another glycogen chain. So, next is the Transfer of segments. Branches are created by transferring segment of a glycogen chain containing 6 to 7 glycosyl residues to C6OH group of glucose residues on the same other glycogen chain. So, so the transferred segments must come from a chain of at least 11 residues. Additionally, new branch points must be at least 4 residues apart to maintain the branch structure. So, the branching involves a breaking alpha 1,6 and reforming the alpha 104 glycosidic bonds. So, branching involves a breaking alpha 14 glycosidic bonds and reforming alpha 106 linkage. So, in summary, glycogen branching kay ga-involve siya og transfer of chain segments to create an alpha 1-6 branch points. So, kani siya kay ga-result siya in a highly branched structure that is optimal for both glucose storage and rapid glucose mobilization. So, the branching enzyme is kuan siya, essential siya for this process. Glycogen metabolism. So, I actually have discussed this part na ganiha sa isa man siguro siya sa pinakauna nga slide. So, ako nang i-summarize or mag-tell ko details about ani. So, ang kuan day, ang body day kay gastor siya sugar as glycogen. Making a glycogen involves adding sugar units together. So, using a special helper molecules and enzymes. So, breaking down glycogen kay ga-release siya sugar which the body can then use for energy or to keep blood sugar levels steady. So, ang special starter molecule is needed to begin the process of making glycogen. So, the glycogen molecule is branched with makes it better at storing and releasing the sugar quickly. So, last part of my report. So, control of glycogen metabolism. So, when CAMP decreases, phosphorylation rate decreases. So, the phosphorylation increases and the fraction of enzymes in their dephosphorylated form increases. And when CAMP levels a decrease in the cyclic adenosine monophosphate or CAMP. So, it is a central to this process. Next is phosphorylation and dephosphorylation. When lower CAMP leads to a reduced phosphorylation rate and an increase of dephosphorylation rate of enzymes involved in glycogen metabolism. Next is enzyme activity. So, this shift in phosphorylation or dephosphorylation affects the proportion of enzymes in their active or dephosphorylated forms, specifically in the glycogen synthase, which katongga build of glycogen. It becomes more active, while glycogen phosphorylase or katong ga-breakdown of glycogen becomes less active. So, the resultant of the activation of the glycogen synthase and the inhibition of glycogen phosphorylase can cause a change in the flux direction towards innate glycogen synthesis metabolic flux. So the combined effect of this enzyme's activity change alters the metabolic flux, directing the overall process towards innate glycogen synthesis or katong building up glycogen stores. So, in simpler terms, when CAMP is low, the body favors building up glycogen, and when CAMP is high, the body favors breaking down glycogen. So, this is a crucial regulatory mechanism for maintaining blood glucose level.
So now let's move on to another topic, which is the gluconeogenesis. Gluconeogenesis is the formation of glucose from non-carbohydrate sources. These sources includes lactate, provate, glycerol, some amino acids such as gluconic amino acid, and proponate and ruminants only. So the GNG is a vital metabolic pathway that allows the body to synthesize glucose from non-carbohydrate precursors. This process is crucial for maintaining stable blood glucose level, especially during periods of fasting, starvation, intense exercise, or when intake is low. So, gluconeogenesis literally means new formation of sugar, or it is an anabolic process that creates glucose from molecules that are not carbohydrates. Functions of glucose or gluconeogenesis. Gluconeogenesis supplies the body with glucose. Glucose is the only source of energy for nervous tissues, RBCS, and skeletal muscle during exercise. Glucose is a precursor of milk sugar or lactose in mammary gland. Glucose is important during low carbohydrate diet or when liver glycogen is depleted after 12 to 18 hours. Gluconeogenesis clears the blood from the waste product of other tissues as lactate produced by muscles and RBCS. So, the primary function of gluconeogenesis is to ensure a continuous supply of glucose for tissues and organs that rely heavily on it for energy, such as the brain, red blood cells, renal medulla, and embryonic tissues. While glycolysis, breakdowns of glycogen, gluconeogenesis provide glucose. Its stores are limited, uh, typically lasting for about a day, but gluconeogenesis becomes increasingly important as glycogen reserves deplete. The major substrates of gluconeogenesis, or the precursors. The primary non-carbohydrate sources for glucose synthesis are lactate, glycerol, gluconic amino acid, and propanate. For lactate, it produced during anaerobic glycolysis in actively contracting muscles and red blood cells. So it used the cycle of Cori cycle, where a lactate from muscle is transported to the liver and converted back to glucose. Now, for glycerol, it releases from the breakdown of triglycerides or fats in adipose tissue. Glycerol can be converted to dihydroxytone phosphate, or the DHAP, an intermediate in glycolysis and gluconeogenesis. So for gluconic amino acid, most amino acids except lysine and leucine can be converted into intermediates for the citric acid cycle or the provate. So which then enter the gluconic pathway that alanine is a significant example that being transmitted to provate. For lastly, for the propanate, it is a product of a metabolism in ruminants. Again, we mentioned ganina na a propanate in ruminants only. So it is a product of metabolism in ruminants and bacterial fermentation in the intestine. So the location of the gluconeogenesis process. So in the intracellular location, the cytosol and the mitochondria. So organ location, liver is 90% and kidney is 10%. So in animals, gluconeogenesis primarily focus on the liver or in the liver, the major site usually in the animals, and to a lesser extent in the kidney cortex. The kidney can contribute significantly, especially during prolonged starvation, up to 40% glucose or total of glucose synthesis. Gluconeogenesis, or the major pathways and regulation of gluconeogenesis and glycolysis, are in the liver. Entry point of gluconic amino acids after transmissions are indicated by arrow extended from circles. The key glucogenic enzymes are shown in a double Borden boxes. Now, the ATP required for gluconeogenesis is supplied by oxidation of fatty acids. The propanate, again, is important only in the ruminants. Arrow with the wavy shafts signify allosteric effect, or dash-shafted arrows, covalent modification by reversible phosphorylation. So high concentrations of alanine act as a gluconic signal by inhibiting glycolysis as a provate kinase step. So this is the a process of the gluconeogenesis. Again, if you already know the process of the glycolysis, this is just the murag continuation niya ato na process. Kay naman na siya another process, and this time is for the gluconeogenesis. So mainly kaning nasa ubos kaning na ay wall, this is more the process of the gluconeogenesis in the mitochondria area. Gluconeogenesis steps or the pathway steps and relationship to glycolysis. So the steps of gluconeogenesis are mainly the reversal of glycolysis, except for the three irreversible kinases, which are replaced by the following enzymes. Gluconeogenesis is essentially the reverse of glycolysis, but it is not simple reversal. Glycolysis has three irreversible steps that are bypassed by unique enzymes in gluconeogenesis. This ensures that both pathway can be independently regulated and operate in the opposite directions. So the key bypass reactions are catalyzed by one. First is the pyruvate and the phosphoenol pyruvate. So these two enzymes bypass the irreversible pyruvate kinase step of glycolysis. Pyruvate is the first to carboxylated to oxaloacetate in the mitochondria by pyruvate carbonase. And then oxaloacetate is converted to uh, phosphenol pyruvate or the PEP by PEPCP either in the mitochondria or cytosol. So that is the first step. Next step is the fructose 1 and the 6 biphosphate or the biphosphatase. These enzymes is a bypasses the irreversible phosphofructokinase 1 or the PFK1 step by glycolysis by hydrolyzing fructose 1,6 biphosphate to fructose 6 phosphate. So next is the glucose 6 phosphate and glucose. These enzymes primarily found in the liver and kidney bypasses the irreversible hexokinase or gluconase step of glycolysis by dephosphorylating glucose 6 phosphate to free glucose, allowing it to be released into bloodstream. This pathway is energized intensive, requiring ATP and GTP to drive the reaction. So now we have here the blood glucose is derived from the diet, gluconeogenesis and glycolysis. So this is the process of the blood glucose that is derived from the diet of gluconeogenesis and glycolysis. So dried carbohydrates produce glucose, galactose and fructose, now which are transported to the liver via the hepatic portal vein. Glucose is formed from two groups, direct net conversions and tissue metabolism products. So lactate is formed by the glycolysis in the skeletal muscles and erythrocytes. Then it's transported to the liver and kidney. Dira din mag-form of glucose. In the fasting state, pag mag-fasting tab, alanine is produced from skeletal muscles and exported to the liver, serving as substrate for gluconeogenesis. Gluconeogenesis regulation. Sa hormonal regulation involve glucocorticoids or cortisol, glucagon, and insulin. The cortisol or the glucocorticoids stimulate gluconeogenesis by promoting enzyme synthesis and protein catabolism, while glucagon lowers fructose 2 and 6 biophosphate levels. Now, for the allostatic effectors or regulation, like acetyl CoA and ATP inhibit glycolysis and stimulate gluconeogenesis. So there are two regulations of gluconeogenesis, the hormonal regulation and the allostatic regulation. So let's start with the hormonal regulation, which involves the cortisol, glucagon, and insulin. For glucagon, a primary hormone that stimulates gluconeogenesis, particularly during fasting. It promotes the expression and activity of key gluconic enzymes. And now for the cortisol or the glucocorticoids, also stimulates gluconeogenesis, especially during stress or prolonged fasting, by increasing the availability of amino acids, precursors from protein breakdowns. And lastly, for the hormonal regulation, the insulin. Insulin, it is a potent inhibitor of gluconeogenesis. With high insulin level after a meal suppresses glucose production by the liver. So those are the involved sa mga hormonal regulations sa gluconeogenesis. And next is the allostatic regulations, which involves the ATP and the citrate, AMP and fructose 2,6-biphosphate. So for the ATP and citrate, with high level of ATP and citrate, these indicators or indicates that have high energy charge generally promote the gluconeogenesis and inhibit glycolysis. Now for the AMP and the fructose 2,6-biphosphate, with high AMP levels, which indicating low energy, inhibit gluconeogenesis and activate glycolysis, which are the F2 and the 6BP, is a potent activator of glycolysis to the PFK1 and inhibitor of gluconeogenesis for the FBPs. So the transcriptional control of hormones like glucagon and insulin can be influence the synthesis of glucogenic enzymes at the gene expression level. So this is the overall or the summary of the gluconeogenesis. So gluconeogenesis again is the formation of glucose from non-carbohydrate carbon sources. And when we do fasting, low carb diet, intense exercise, and starvation, mauna ang process na maghitabo ang mga gluconeogenesis, which are the non-carbohydrate sources are the amino acids, lactate, and glycerol. So our body uses carbon from fats and proteins to make sugar. So in human, the process mainly occurs in liver, but also in kidney, intestine, muscles, and brain din maka-create og sugar. So in summary, gluconeogenesis is an essential and intrinsically regulated metabolic pathways that allows the body to generate glucose from non-carbohydrate sources, ensuring a stable supply of this vital fuel for the glucose-dependent tissues. So particularly during periods of carbohydrate scarcity. So now that's all for this topic, and let's move on to another topic will be discussed by Philip.
Good day, Ma'am Baby Basikea, as well as to my classmates. I am Philip Michael A. Labis, one of the presenter of the topic glycogen, gluconeogenesis, and the pentose phosphate pathway. But the lesson topic for me is the pentose phosphate pathway lang. So, before we proceed to the next slide, I would like to explain what's the importance of this pathway, which is the pentose phosphate pathway. So, pentose phosphate pathway, by the way, is responsible for the production of the NADPH, and NADPH is used for kanang cholesterol synthesis as well as fatty acid synthesis. So, pentose phosphate pathway also produce 5 carbon sugars, and it also create intermediate for the other pathway. So let's head to our first slide. Now we have the introduction. The pentose phosphate pathway is the metabolic pathway parallel to the glycolysis, but our pentose phosphate pathway is focused lang siya sa anabolic, kung waga anabolic building up molecules rather than our catabolic like our glycolysis. The pentose phosphate pathway is also called as the phosphogluconate, since this pathway emphasizes the use of the phosphate gluconate as a key intermediate of the pathway, and it also called hexose monophosphation since it highlights the use of glucose-6-phosphate. At the same time, it is also an alternative route to our glycolysis. While it involves oxidation of glucose, its primary role is anabolic rather than catabolic, as I have said earlier. Next is it is an important pathway that generates precursor for nucleotide synthesis and is especially important in red blood cells or erythrocytes. So the pentose phosphate pathway or triple P is crucial for nucleotide synthesis because it produces ribose 5-phosphate, a direct precursor for nucleotide biosynthesis. So let's head on to our slide 2. So the pentose phosphate pathway occurs in the cytoplasm of liver. At the same time, it is found in adrenal cortex and lactating mammary cells in plants. It's plastid cells with high biosynthetic activity. So our slide 3, our substrate here is our glucose, or atom starting material is glucose-6-phosphate. This is a phosphorylated form of glucose, a 6-carbon sugar, and a crucial intermediate in many metabolic pathways, including na dari ang our glycolysis. The fact that glucose-6-phosphate is a starting point for the pentose phosphate pathway connects it directly to the other glucose metabolic processes. Next is we have two distinct phases here in our pentose phosphate pathway. We have oxidative phase, which generates NADPH and ribose 5-phosphate. Second is our non-oxidative phase, which interconverts 5-carbon sugars producing ribose 5-phosphate for nucleotide synthesis and glycolytic intermediate. Next is our slide 4. So we have our first reaction, which is the oxidative reaction. So starting point nato is our glucose-6-phosphate is being converted to the 6-phosphogluconolactone, and NADP plus is reduced or kanang they gain electron, turning into NADPH. Along with the release of this proton, enzyme that had been used is kanang glucose-6-phosphate dehydrogenase. Then our phosphogluconolactone is hydrolyzed or reacted through the use of water to 6-phosphogluconate. So the enzyme that's been used in this reaction is gluconolactonase. Next is the final step of our oxidative phase. 6-phosphogluconate undergoes an oxidation and decarboxylation, or the loss of carbon dioxide molecule. This oxidation generates another molecule, NADPH, from NADP+, and carbon dioxide is released as a byproduct. So the remaining 5 carbons from our ribose 5-phosphate is the K5-carbon sugar, and the enzyme that is responsible for this reaction is the 6-phosphogluconate dehydrogenase. So our next and last reaction is the non-oxidative phase, which is our complex 1. So our ribose 5-phosphate is isomerized to ribose 5-phosphate or epimerized to cellulose 5-phosphate. Now our ribose 5-phosphate and cellulose 5-phosphate undergo reaction catalyzed by transketolase and transaldosase that transfer carbon units, ultimately forming into fructose 6-phosphate and glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. So let's move on to our 7th slide. So this is summary of all our reaction. First, start at the glucose. It undergoes into enzymatic reaction turning into glucose 6-phosphate by the help of our enzyme na hexokinase. And since one of our phosphate of our ATP is being donated to the glucose, then our ATP then turned into ADP or adenosine diphosphate na lang. Next is our glucose 6-phosphate naman is hydrolyzed into 6-phosphogluconate, and our NADP is reduced or gained electron, then turning it into kanang NADPH. And our final step of our oxidative reaction, it produces NADPH, releasing carbon dioxide as a byproduct, as I have said earlier, and ribulose 5-phosphate. Next is our non-oxidative oxidative reaction. This phase primarily focuses on rearranging and interconverting 5 carbon sugars. Mentionedly, we have ribulose 5-phosphate, our ribose 5-phosphate, cellulose 5-phosphate. This is achieved through the action of transcatolase and transaldose, our enzymes, which transfer 2 and 3 carbon units respectively between these sugars. So the end products of this phase are fructose 6-phosphate and as well as glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. So both are important intermediates in glycolysis and other metabolic pathways. Let's move on to our next slide. So this is the pentose phosphate pathway overall reaction. It converts 3 molecules of glucose 6-phosphate to ribulose 5-phosphate and 3 carbon dioxide and 6 NADPH is our product sa atong first reaction. Furthermore, sa ato ang second reaction is isomerizations yield to cellulose 5-phosphate and 1 ribose 5-phosphate, which are then converted to the fructose 6-phosphate and 1 glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate as our overall product. Moving towards as next slide. So oxidative portion, which is irreversible, generates 2 NADPH, which can then be used in fatty acid synthesis and cholesterol synthesis, and for maintaining reduced glutathione reduction or RBC. So the oxidative phase or oxidative phase of pentose phosphate pathway is irreversible kay due to that highly exergenic decarboxylation reaction, making the reverse reaction thermodynamically unfavorable. So next is our non-oxidative portion, which is reversible. It generates intermediate molecules, which is our ribose 5-phosphate, glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, fructose 6-phosphate is it can be used for our nucleotide synthesis and the glycolysis. Next is the non-oxidative phase of the pentose phosphate pathway is reversible due po dyan sa ito ang near equilibrium or balance nature with isomerization and transferase reaction. So let's move on to our next slide. We have glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase is identified as the primary regulatory enzyme of the pentose phosphate pathway. Its activity directly impacts the pathway overall function. Next is our levels of glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase are increased in the liver and adipose tissue when large amount of carbohydrates are consumed. It means that high carbohydrate intakes leads to the increased activity or the increase of glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase levels in the liver and adipose tissue. So this suggests that the pathway activity is directly linked to the availability of the glucose. Now our glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase activity is allosterically regulated. It's stimulated by NADP+ and inhibited by NADPH, and palmitil-CoA enzyme. So this feedback mechanism ensures that NADPH production matches cellular needs and prevents overproduction. So the inhibition by palmitil-CoA enzyme, a fatty acid intermediate, further ties the pathway's activity to the ongoing fatty acid synthesis. Let's move on to our next slide. Pentose phosphate pathway functions as an alternative route for glucose oxidation, does not directly consume or produce ATP. It means that the pentose phosphate pathway serves as an alternative route for glucose metabolism, distinct from the glycolysis. It avoids the direct consumption or production of the ATP. The pentose phosphate pathway main function is to produce NADPH, essential for fatty acid synthesis. This is particularly important under the conditions where the glycolysis is insufficient to meet the cell's reducing power requirements. So the pathway also generates the precursor for nucleotide synthesis. And our NADPH is also used to reduce glutathione, and NADPH generated by the pentose phosphate pathway is used to reduce glutathione, a vital antioxidant. This is crucial for protecting cells from oxidative damage. Glutathione then is used to transport amino acids across the membranes of the certain cells by a glutamyl cycle. Glutathione also plays a role in transporting amino acids across the cell membranes through a process called the E-glutamyl cycle. So our next slide is a generation of ribose 5-phosphate. When that pH are too low, the oxidative reactions of the pathway can be used to generate ribose 5-phosphate for nucleotide biosynthesis. So when the pH are high naman, the reversible non-oxidative portion of the pathway can be used to generate ribose 5-phosphate for the nucleotide biosynthesis from the fructose 6-phosphate and the glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. And that's all for my part. Thank you.